All right, let's see if we can try this again. What's going on, everybody? This is Calandrius, and here is just a little project I'm trying to get going on right now. This is Galandrius Reviews, and Galandrius Reviews is just a basic review video of just a man talking about wrestling reviews. I review different types of wrestling related media, commentary, whatever it may be. So I got a little baby that was sleeping in my arms tonight, and she was knocked out. I felt like watching something. Normally, I would have been asleep by now, to be honest with you. But I was like, you know what? Let me go and watch something that I had ready to go, and it was the latest WWE DVD on the Dudley Boys. Talks about the legacy of the Dudley Boys. Came out in 2016, which is this year. I don't know why I said that, but came out this year. Just came out actually this past week, and yeah, highly recommended. Highly recommended DVD. Highly recommended documentary. Considering it's the first one of the year, and it's a great start for the year when it comes to WWE documentaries because the last two last year weren't they weren't all that. They had the Sting one, which it was good. I feel like they kind of left out. I don't know. I feel like just a little bit. It was good, but I don't. I'll leave a review for next time and I'll discuss it, but it wasn't all that. Unfortunately, the Owen Hart one was just not very good. Even Bret Hart said all the limitations as to what happened. Don't want to curse, but he said it was the poops. But he said it wasn't the best. So it's good that 2016 started and the first big release, documentary wise, was good. It was well done. The Dudley Boys, Devon and Bubba Ray, one of the most popular tag teams around, one of the most decorated tag teams around, and this DVD, I feel it kind of covered just about everything. It didn't leave anything behind. I don't think it, you know, avoided any certain things. So, without further ado, I'll just take a couple minutes to just chat with you guys and let you guys know my thoughts, talk about the DVD and what they discussed about it, and just give my review at the end. So, yeah, the Dudley Boys, believe it or not, are not from Dudleyville. Nope, they are not. I know that was huge. That right there. I was like, what? They weren't? Nope, they are not from Dudleyville. They are from New York City, actually. So that's pretty cool. Being from NY myself. Um, yeah, they're both from um, the New York area. One from Bubba's from Queens, and the other one from Brooklyn. D one from Brooklyn. I probably got them mixed up, but yeah, both New York guys. And watching this documentary though, if I'm been a huge fan of wrestling for many years. I mean, since as long as I remember. Um, I've always been into the whole wrestling thing. I listen to podcasts and things like that, read magazines and all that. And while now in my different time of my life with family and stuff like that, my time is a little bit more divided now. But I still take the time to try to watch it from here and there, not as divided as before, but still, and I read different things online, whatever. But if you're fully into wrestling, a lot of the stuff that they discuss in this documentary is not a huge surprise to most. A couple of surprises here and there, but especially with the podcast age and the Chris Jericho podcast, which is a great podcast. Um, it's like whenever he has a guest in his podcast, he goes through their whole life, their whole career, retrospective kind of thing, which is pretty cool. So it's kind of like a movie form of this. So it's like the podcast episode of Jericho with the Dudley Boys, only a full DVD release. So a lot of things that they said in that podcast, was for the most part mentioned in this documentary. Um, One thing about the documentaries that WWE always has is that they always have those maps, and that's always funny because they have the maps and then they show the graphic of such and such is going all the way over here. And I always find those maps funny. It's been in like literally every single DVD and documentary that WWE has. So I was waiting how fast it was gonna take before they showed it, and didn't take long at all. I think it was like 3 minutes in talking about when Devon moved from Brooklyn all the way to Long Island. You see the glasses go boop, boop, go over there. Same thing with Bubba Ray. So that was, very, normal with the WWE DVD documentaries. It just pops right up right there. They should have some type of a website. Well, I don't know if anybody will probably look at it, or I'm sure maybe somewhere on Reddit there is like a little guide that shows the timestamp into each documentary DVD that shows one of these map things, because it's literally on every one of them. Um, yeah, so quick observations with Devon. I mean, Devon is such a humble guy, humble guy when you hear him talking, and shows by his upbringing. He was brought up in the church and stuff, but he looks so old. Not to say that he looks old in a bad way, but he always has that mature looking face. Like, he looks like very grizzled, like a veteran, and it's crazy the face. He still looks old when he was younger, like when he was like in high school. Looks like a grown man, full goatee and everything like that. Just looks like a grown man, because he's a big guy. And it's funny because they show his brothers. I guess one of his brothers just must be really younger than him or something. But then they show his teacher and his high school teacher, now. And his high school teacher looks way younger looking than Devon. So I'm like, yo, like, seems kind of weird. I'm like, like Devon looks so much older than his high school teacher. So it's like, man, this guy just looks so much older in his high school time. But they brought up his upbringing and stuff. He got a full scholarship to play football, but he pursued his wrestling dream. And a lot of people may know, he went on to go train with Johnny Rodz. And Johnny Rodz, for those who don't know, was a older WWE wrestler, Hall of Fame wrestler, and he trained a lot of you know known names. Taz, Tommy Dreamer. I'm sure I'm missing some more as well too, but he's a known person, and Devon breaks up, brings up that's how he came about. Bubba Ray talks about his upbringing being, a clown, very athletic, and a very tight knit Italian community, Italian family and stuff. And he said it right off the bat. He said he knew what he wanted to do, and he wanted to be either an entertainer or a rock star kind of thing, or a wrestler. And you can see it with him because he's always been the vocal piece of the group. He's much better mic skills than Devon. He can talk way better. I mean, Devon can talk too, but Bubba definitely can talk. He's more charismatic, and he was very athletic. So they showed his going, his origins with wrestling. He went on to study with Johnny Rodz, but in the documentary, they kind of portrays that he kind of had a rough start because his trainer kind of took advantage of him, whoever he was, because he didn't want to mention him. So he said he didn't want to give him any type of notoriety or nothing. So they move on to how they kind of got their breaks. And as he discusses, by he being Bubba Ray, discusses ECW, it's funny because like my mind just took me away from the DVD for a moment and just started to reminisce for a little bit about how ECW was, and he was describing it, especially when they showed that grainy, the grainy fuzzy TV, and that was how the ECW was. It was the fuzzy little thing, and it had like when you're like the old TVs back in the day, it was like the snow signal, and they'll show the ECW logo, and it was that music, that scary music, and it just brought me back, man, when I was younger. I remember I used to stay up as late as I could to try to record it. And most of the time I couldn't because I just fell asleep because my VCR, it really wasn't very responsive with the whole time recording, and I just tried to stay up as late as I could. It'd be like Saturday night, man, late, like 3 in the morning or something like that. And it just brought me back, man, because I love that feeling of watching that crazy style of wrestling, especially when I was younger, because it's like it was completely different. It was violent. And one of my biggest regrets was not taking up my friend Gil. I had a friend named Gil Soto. And if Gil ever hears this, I hope you're doing good, buddy. But he was a friend that I had when growing up, and I remember he invited me along with his sister to go to the Hammerstein Ballroom to go watch ECW. And I was little, I was younger. I don't know how old we were, like early teens or something like that. I don't know, 11, 12, probably. I forgot, to be honest with you. But I didn't even bother asking my parents, and I knew they were going to tell me no. But man, I should have tried because that would have been real sweet to go to see ECW live. That's pretty cool. But yeah, man, ECW was something else, man. It's just such a revolutionary thing. And watching this documentary, to be honest with you, it just really, it was awesome because of how well produced and how well made it was. But also, it's very depressing to see it because you're like, man, the things that they went through, the things that they did, the things that they were allowed to do, and how the product was is just so different than what it is now, to the point where, and I don't want to sound like those old people be like, oh, back in my time, but man, we are never gonna see anything like that again. Never, never. So it's kind of a little depressing, but I really hope something different comes along that really changes things, where we can look back at it. Now, 10, 20 years from now, we can look back at these ages as something, man, wow, something great. But so far, can't really say what it is. So yeah, Bubba Ray just talks about his how he came into the ECW arena, and comes in pretty much by getting a quick shot at getting chokeslammed, and he did it very well from there. From there, they talked about how the Dudley Boys was created, which was created by Raven, which is pretty cool. And Raven talks about, just very briefly, how he came up with that idea. From there, they break down how the whole Dudley Boys idea is about, what they were, where they came from, and it was pretty cool to see that. I wish they had a lot of cameos throughout the whole documentary. It's cool to see how they had Sign Guy Dudley, Spike Dudley, but they didn't have Joe Gortner, which I would have loved if they had Joe Gortner talking about those nasty, disgusting monologues he had. But I guess I understand, because he really had nothing to do with the Dudley Boys like that, and he really didn't have a huge effect with the Dudley Boys, and not like that. But still, it would have been pretty cool. However, they talked about how they were at first, they first Bubba Ray was kind of like a comedy act, and all that, and eventually they brought in Devon, and Devon was the more serious act, and he talked about how his idea, how his character came about through Paul Heyman, and how Paul Heyman off told him to watch Pulp Fiction, and it was pretty cool just hearing how much of a genius really Paul Heyman really is. It's crazy how much of an effect, how much of a smart man that guy is, and all the crazy characters that he's come up with, and the success that he's had. Pretty cool to watch. Yeah, they break down their ECW run, how they first, feuded, and after that, like how that's another thing I wish they would have really focused just a little, maybe a little bit more. Talk about that one crazy incident, but how much of a strong heel they were, and Bubba really carried that. How much he talked crap to the crowds, and that was really cool. How they covered all that. Then they talked about how interesting how they got their way into WWE. Pretty much, Devon didn't want to call them. He figured, yo, if they want me, they'll call me. So the one guy, I forgot, his name just slipped my mind. But there's a black guy he always used to have a backwards hat, and he was always taking pictures of ECW. Apparently, he also had some connections as well too, photographer and stuff. And he pretty much set the deal and called him up to hook up with Vince Russo. And from there, the Dudley Boys made their arrival into the WWE. They talked about that story, which is kind of known as well too, in regards to how Public Enemy didn't have a good time, didn't have a successful run in WWE based on what their decision was to do with the acolytes, like by not, taking a fall and stuff like that. So the Dudleys, they broke down that great story. I don't want to give away too much because I really recommend you guys just watch it. but they talked about that. That was their first initial test in the WWE. They covered the entire TLC. They covered all of that, how the ladders and the Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys, their feud, and how awesome that is. You know, that was just such a great string of matches, and just reliving those matches again on their DVD is just so cool to watch. So cool to watch. Um, Eventually, they break down how that it was a mistake, but kind of not really, because when you look back at it, it did spring careers of such as, like, Batista. That's where he got to start. It would have been nice if they would have talked about it just a little bit more, but again, they didn't. Um, but they talked about the brand split that they had, and that brand split resulted in these guys being split up, and Devon became the Reverend. So he talked briefly about the Reverend. That's another one part I wish they would have talked about in the course of the Reverend, how they incorporated their gimmick so much, because they had a collection plate going around, I remember. So I wish it would have been. I remember there was a story that he had said. I forgot where he had said it. Gosh, but he had talked about something. I think it was with Triple H or something like that, and they were just like making comments about it. And he said, yeah. And before you know it, he said that collection plate box was full of money, like full of money, and all the other wrestlers were saying, like, man, this guy's really getting some money off of that. But they didn't break that down. But they covered that, and they covered the bad in regards to it, really. Well, they could have covered just a little bit more of the good into it, because truly the good into that, well, the bad into that is that, yeah, everybody wanted to see the traditional 3D stuff and all that, but the good about it that they should have mentioned into it is because it gave really an opportunity to show the WWE crowd that, these guys, yeah, they're known as a tag team, but on the singles run, they did good too. They weren't terrible. Devon did his thing, but Bubba really showed out. He really did, and they should have talked about that, like notable feuds he had. He had a little bit of a mini feud there with, I believe it was Triple H, and he showed off his talking. Um, that was a good thing in regards to it. So it had its good and it had its bad, but I think they should have focused more on that good. That was that. They had the opportunity to really shine a little bit more as singles competitors. So I thought it was good. Um, I didn't think it was all negative, but their whole theme behind it is Dudley Boys Forever kind of thing, and I guess I understand that. Then they talk about they're reuniting again, and eventually they left the WWE because things were just running dry. No problem. One thing that was interesting is that they had Rob Van Dam, and this is WWE wrestler, and it's pretty new because he had the TV T-shirt that had the WWE logo, the new one on it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I don't know if he's coming back anytime soon or what. But another interesting thing was they full on mentioned TNA. That was pretty cool. So it's becoming more and more. They're starting to mention TNA. First started with the Sting, and now this. So they mentioned his TNA run, and they mentioned how in so much shape Devon got. Man, he got in really good shape, and how much of a great run he had in TNA. He really did have a good run, and he really got a chance to shine and show how good of a special competitor he is. So they talked about that. They talked about how, Devon, he didn't have the greatest experience over at TNA, so his time was to do things with his school and have times with his family. So, showed how both these people had their separate ways and stuff. So that was pretty cool. And then they fast forward. One thing I missed as well is their Japan stint as well too. They talked about how they went out to Japan and do their thing as well too there. So they covered how that WWE really wasn't the it is the end all be all, but it isn't the only thing. So they also showed how they went on to do other things elsewhere. So that's pretty cool, and props to WWE for. I mean, I see acknowledging that, because that was a big part of their career. That it's good that they didn't just glance over it. I mean, they did announce it. They did say all the opportunities that Devon got as a singles competitor that he truly didn't get in WWE. Um, they fast forwarded to, years later when, just what happened right now with the Royal Rumble, how he came and how the response was, and fast forwarding a little bit more now to when they just came back and they interviewed some people. A lot of people, at least when he came back, all they interviewed was Connor. That's it. That's a little disappointing. I mean, the what you call it, those rip-off guys of the Legion of Doom, Connor and Victor, the Ascension. And I'm like, okay, I mean, it's okay, and I'm not insulting them, but it's like, come on, man. Like, they could have interviewed people like excuse me, the Usos, who've openly said with the years they always wanted to work with him. They could have interviewed New Day, and really talk about, and they could have went in debt into how much the Dudley Boys mean, but it also goes to show you how, the tag team scene is starting to grow, but it really also shows you how it really isn't like how it was before. The tag team scene years ago was just so thick, so strong. The competition was incredible. Where now it's just not there. But would have been nice if they really went into more depth into really this is their last time before their career is up, and how they can come in to help those younger teams and talk about all the stuff that can go on, and just can maybe talk about, man, imagine what you can do with these guys and things like that, because really that's what they've been doing this since they've come back. Also, they went into really, they were showing all the images in regards to when they came back at that show in the Brooklyn, and man, that crowd was so live, man. I was like, man, it's like it was pretty cool. It was a very good return for them. But they capped it off talking about how great they were. Bubba, he gave props to where it is. People, how he said that, people think that we are the best tag team. He's like, not really. Legion of Doom or Rock and Roll Express. So he mentioned the names that he gave respect to, and then he gave credit to where credit's due as to who used the table the best. He gave it to Sabu, who used it, who was innovators, PG-13. No, Public Enemy but they just made it cooler. So, they gave their respect. But overall, great DVD, great documentary. I highly, highly recommend it that you watch this documentary. I mean, if I were to give it out of a 5, I would probably give it a 3.5 stars out of 5. And the only reason why I give it 3.5 stars out of 5 is just a couple of the tips, a couple of the things I would have loved for them had mentioned, as I had said before, covering the positives of their single run, covering about, with people that spawned from their singles run, and maybe covering just a little bit more in regards to, the Japan, what they did in Japan. But I guess I understand they don't want to give too much love to things like Japan at the very least, but that would be nice to see. Maybe they could have talked just a little bit more in regards to who are coming out of their developmental school and stuff like that. But great documentary, great series of matches. The extras in there, all the matches that are in there are amazing. But highly recommend it either way to give it a check out, guys. But yeah, man, that's it. I don't want to take too much of your time. Thanks you guys for listening, and I'll check you guys next time. I'll have another review up of another DVD, and I'll give you my review. Thanks, guys.